Wednesday, April 13th, and advanced classes, we get more into the gospel. Once again, camp info tomorrow. Your book report checkpoint was due today. That's how you now have a book that you get to take home and hold on. Ooh, I just pooped out a bookmark. Take home and keep forever and ever until 3 weeks from now. Let's see, from there, we went through, that's the sign from the gospel website. Walden, who Josh keeps quoting from. More of the Walden and civil disobedience from Hero David, the original hippie. The Gumby, Groundhog Day. Hopefully y'all went home and spent hours watching Monty Python.
I forgot.
Yeah, shocker. They talk about the Channel 1 News, which is where we get the audio-visual stuff because they send commercials into the school to corrupt your brain. And then cuneiform, I think is the word it was, which means turnip shape.
Cuneiform. Cuneiform is...
That's what I thought. So, something form? Napiform. How silly of me, I was so far off. Napiform. Obviously, you guys all went home and complimented your parents and are now grounded until camp. Then Bloomingdale's is where we left off from there. All right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Halfway down on 26. Yes, there is. The waft of perfumes hit me like a surge of memories. I plopped down in the tall seat at the Chanel counter. I think it's safe to say I was the only person in that department sitting in the lotus position. And I talked about the lotus position yesterday. It's one you can do. I found, there's the makeup counter, in case those of you who have never been to a makeup counter, welcome to being a guy. But this is where you sit down and they put little pretty things on your face to make you feel special. And then that's the lotus position when I do with that fellow can. More power to you. Hello, Joshy. How's it going? Marlene, the beauty doctor, has been working here for more than 20 years with her shiny helmet of dyed black hair and dark eyebrows penciled in for the ones she lost years ago. She was Mom's favorite salesperson. It's slow, so you can sit. If I get a client, you know the drill. I saluted, then leaned back to hang with Mom. My mother bailed on her wealthy parents' expectations as soon as she hit college. Instead of following their Wall Street footsteps, she hitchhiked cross country, worked tirelessly for civil rights, and made some bad choices in middle. One thing from her Grosse Pointe background she couldn't walk away from, however, was her fondness for upscale moisturizers and creams. She used to spend hours trying to look like she wore no makeup at all. She experimented with pencils and powders like a mad scientist, but always looked the exact same to me. I remember perching on this stool as a preschooler, watching Marlene hand Mom tube after tube of lipstick. Mom would ask me which color I preferred, consider my answer, then buy whichever one she wanted anyway. I waited till Marlene rang someone up at the other end of the counter before I started talking. Okay, Mom. In a nutshell, Beth is cleaning Todd's basement. Peter is dragging me to their lasagna dinner at Catherine's, and I'm nowhere closer to changing the world. A woman with a leopard print hat eyed me as she walked by. I just feel like I'm waiting for my life to begin, that I've wasted 17 years. Then what? 4 years at Princeton? How does that help move civilization forward? You want to see our deep pore cleaning mask? Marlene inquired. I nodded. Whenever Marlene's boss circled by, I pretended I was a paying customer. You ask me. You make it too hard on yourself. Stop worrying about civilization. Worry about staying out of trouble, making nice friends. She rubbed the mask onto my face in small circles. I have nice friends. Well, okay, one nice friend. One nice friend is all you need. Marlene watched her boss get on the escalator, then wiped off my mask with a tissue. Here. She gathered up tiny bottles of free samples and put them in a small bag with handles and gave it to me. You come back any time. I could see Marlene eyeing a potential customer hovering over the nail polish. I saluted again and left. In the shoe department, I tried on 4 pairs of sneakers, 3 pairs of loafers, and 5 pairs of boots before the salesperson deserted me. I circled by the makeup counter on my way out. Mom? I asked. A 50-ish woman in fishnets turned around and went back to what she was doing. Mom, you'll help me, right? With the whole change the world thing? Then I did what I always did when I needed an answer from my mother. I listened for the very next words someone said. A businessman talking on his cell phone provided her response. Yeah, he said in the phone. Of course I will. My grin spread ear to ear. When I said, thanks, Mom, the woman in fishnets turned around again. I tipped my woolen hat her way and headed out of the store. So basically, instead of going to the grave site of his mom, this is where he goes to communicate with her. And then I know people are like, oh, that's kind of weird. But so sitting at a gravestone talking to a big piece of rock. So here he feels this is his connection. And then he also gets to communicate with his mom. So he'll ask a question and then wait for the first thing he hears. And that's his way of thinking his mom is answering him. And so he'll have a number of conversations with his mom throughout the book and try to get her advice. And then sort of just wait for the first answer. Sometimes it works out well. Sometimes not so much. Larry item number 8. That laptop. Peter's girlfriend Catherine had a Humpty Dumpty fetish. If you don't know who Humpty Dumpty is, there you go. Welcome to the 17th century.
Technically, I never thought these an egg.
She collected. You guys are certainly fascinated.
That's the eggs
Smile.
mean.
Give me your shoe, and I'll hook you up. Yes, dear.
Is he actually an egg? Because when he falls and he breaks it.
In the actual story, he was not an egg. It was not until the nursery rhymes later on turned him into an egg. In the actual story, he's just a person.
So Colin broke his neck.
Right.
What? Wait, no, he doesn't have it.
She collected anything poor Mr. Dumpty had affixed himself to. Salt and pepper shakers, cookie jars, puzzles, mailboxes, light switches, vases, bookends. You get the idea. Last Christmas, she gave Peter a Humpty Dumpty tie with clumsy Humpty tumbling down the front of it. She gave me a skateboard with Humpty written across it in lightning bolt letters. It frightened me so much, I buried it under a stack of newspapers in the garage. And then I just ended up giving it to the kid next door. Catherine was 40 pounds overweight, always smiling like the poster woman for Fat, Dumb, and Happy Jeans. Did I just say that? Horrible. All right, better read Larry's tolerance sermon again. She laughed nervously after everything we said and was putting in so much effort to being liked that once in a while, I actually found myself rooting for her. Ah, lasagna, my favorite. Peter dug into the casserole dish like it was the first meal he'd had in months. He and I are both better cooks than Catherine, and besides, she made lasagna every time we came over. Very nice, I said. And I told her 50 times, I don't eat meat. But somehow, that never seemed important enough to register on her radar screen. I filled my plate with lots of garlic bread and tomato sauce. I'm not sure if Peter was really interested in the zany anecdote Catherine filled our airspace with, something about mixed-up files at work and her crazy boss, or if he just pretended she was a client. I don't know how she did it, but the conversation ended up where it always did, at eBay and all the wonderful Humpty bargains Catherine was bidding on. I excused myself as soon as possible, saying I had lots of homework to do. As I walked into the cold night air, I banged my hand against the side of my head to empty out the cascade of Catherine's gibberish. By Porter Street, I could almost hear my own thoughts again. It's not like I was trying to walk by Beth's. My feet somehow ended up there, just in time to catch her running up the driveway. I thought you were dusting Todd's collection of medals tonight. Give it a rest, Josh. I decided to lay off the topic until she felt like talking. We sat on her front steps and watched the flickering Christmas lights the Petersons should have taken down months ago. I hate to admit it, but you may be right. Todd definitely does not appreciate me. That's a giant duh, she shivered. I'll die if I end up being one of those women on talk shows complaining about their lives. Hey, I'll start a fight from the audience, so the ratings will be high. I could never have a normal conversation like this with Todd. I don't know why. Let's see. Because he's a moron? Oh, because he thinks memorizing football plays is more important to the planet than physics or kindness. And I kept my mouth shut and stared straight ahead at the Petersons' lights. Oh, I almost forgot. I opened my backpack and took out the gift bag from Bloomingdale's. You visited your mom today. I wondered where you were, fifth period. Her long fingers removed the items from the tissue paper. Oh, I like this. She rubbed some moisturizer on her hand. A war erupted inside me. Please, try on the lipstick. Don't try on the lipstick. On the one hand, I wanted any excuse to stare at those lips of hers. On the other, I needed to sleep tonight. She wanted to torture me, of course. On went the lipstick. Is it too dark? She asked. I could feel her breath as well as see it. Her lips looked like ripe, juicy plums hanging on a tree. I shrugged, told her it looked okay. I'm not sure about this, she said. Larry's latest sermon really got to me about wasting money on stuff we don't need. Well, it was free, if that makes you feel any better. As a matter of fact, it does. Want to log on? I followed her down to the basement, which was strewn with clothes and CDs. Why don't you see if Todd will reciprocate? His basement couldn't have been any worse than this. Yeah, right. He's on his way over now. Luckily, there was no chance in heck of Todd actually doing anything resembling manual labor, so I had Beth to myself for a few hours. She clicked on her favorite places and pulled up Larry's sermon. While she read the latest installment, I picked up her magic 8-ball and asked a question. Would Beth like Larry's new sermon? Would it resonate with her? I shook the ball, then turned it over. My sources say no. I may not have magic powers, but I bet you're wrong this time, Mr. 8-ball. Josh, you've got to see this. I put down the not-so-magic 8-ball and joined her at her desk. Didn't I tell you? It's like he writes things just for you, no matter what you're thinking. Look. I dragged over a chair and read the latest from Larry. Sermon number 97. I've written a lot about the crap we fill our lives with, possessions that tie us down, that only distract us from who we're trying to become. But what about the people we surround ourselves with? Are they people who ignite our passions, who spur us to greater self-mastery? Are your relationships full of meaning, or are you just going through the motions? Don't you want to dig a little deeper, reach another level? Or are we all just looking for the easy, the convenient, the people we choose to spend our lives with? Are the people who share our journey? Are you surrounded by crewmates or pirates who hijack your time? It's spooky, she said. That's so me and Todd. Yeah, I'm sure Larry was thinking of you two when he wrote it, I answered. I'm serious. There's no there. It's over. I shrugged in agreement, but my brain bounced between anticipation and fantasy. Besides, he eats meat. I can smell it on his breath. It's disgusting. She jumped up and put her hands on her hips, determined. Back to more important things. Let's get going on the Larry Club. Hey, I wasn't the one ironing Letterman jackets all night. I took out the folder of notes I'd made the night before. We worked until her father nicely asked me to leave, if standing at the top of the stairs and coughing is considered nice. She gave me her usual, "You're my best friend, so it's so harmless to be close to you," hug. I just hugged her back in that I'm perfectly content to only be friends way, and then headed home. As I walked down Kimball Street, I thought of all the things I forgot to tell Beth tonight, about the links we could set up from Larry's homepage, about how spring was only a few weeks away, about my conversation with the flip-off Phillips that morning. And oh yeah, Beth, one more thing. Did I forget to mention I was Larry? I'm not much of a detail person. Okay, so I strung you along a little. Big deal. I had to make sure you were with me first. Part 2. He that findeth his life shall lose it, and he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. So yeah, surprise. Unless you read the back of the book. But yeah. That's why we're finding out about this whole website, is because this is the kid who created it and the whole big store that connects to it. The website started out as most of my projects do, as a way not to be bored, a way to create something interesting out of nothing. Also, it was that holiday juggernaut that starts with Halloween, gains steam over Thanksgiving, and comes to a roaring crescendo with Christmas and New Year. The commercialism had reached an all-time high last year, and I felt a desperate need to rebel, especially with Mom not here. Creating the website was a way to distract myself during that torturous, hiccup, and overwhelming time. It hardly even dented the sadness. I designed the graphics, set up the website using my cell phone as the modem so the line couldn't be traced. I got the phone from an ad in the back of a magazine and registered it to a post office box. I could have done the whole webcam, hey, look at me thing, but even online, my privacy was crucial. This all came at a time when I was designing a series of biblical action figures, for no other reason than for my own entertainment, of course. My favorites were Samson and Delilah. She came with scissors, and his hair could actually be removed. So I called the site The Gospel According to Larry, Larry being the most unbiblical name I could think of. At first, it was funny. Just 2 or 3 hits a day. Lonely internet nomads with nothing better to do than read the rantings of another spiritual pilgrim. The comments were mostly positive, and some of the arguments were stimulating. So I began to stay up later and put more time into my sermons. Someone even posted an article from a local newspaper about the site. Reading that was 100 times more gratifying than my early acceptance letter to Princeton. Believe me. People started emailing Larry, asking who he or she was. One day I had the idea of photographing my possessions. The subject of my stuff needs its own chapter. I'll do that next. Scanning them and posting them to the website. Would it be possible to track down an anonymous person anywhere in the world by the things he or she owned? The question intrigued me. I made a bet with myself that I could photograph each item in such a way that no one could track me down. It was a catch-22. I was happy that what I did was interesting to others, but because Larry's identity was unknown, I couldn't take any credit for the phenomenon, couldn't use it on my resume, or, more importantly, brag about it to someone like Beth. I could, I suppose, but there's something pretty slimy about a philosopher seeking attention for personal gain. Witness the televangelist, if you don't believe me. So I found myself in the awkward position of starting my own fan club. It was a routine almost worthy of the Python troupe, or maybe just the Three Stooges. The irony and just plain weirdness of it invigorated me, and I spent the next hour sorting through the photographs of my possessions, deciding which one to post the next day. Larry item number 11. Belt on a door handle. I learned many things living with an advertising executive for 5 years. One of them was that for a company to succeed, it needed a marketing niche. It wasn't enough to start up a website. I needed a